People talked about Talani like she was a myth, a ghost in a designer suit. They said she could turn a roadside gutter into a palace walkway. But no one had ever seen her. Not once. Not even the brides whose weddings she planned. And when Cheta signed that contract, she had no idea that what she signed wasn't just paper. It was a countdown to something she could never escape. It was a warm Wednesday in Lagos, and the city smelled of roasted corn, exhaust fumes, and destiny. Cheta sat in her car, staring at the gleaming glass building in front of her. Talani Weddings, a celebration you'll never forget, the silver sign read. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Just a wedding planner, she whispered. Why do I feel like I'm going in for a blood test? She was a rising media personality, known for her sweet voice on the radio and sassy Instagram posts. People called her Cheta the Charmer. Every brand wanted to work with her. Every guy wanted to date her. And now, every eye was watching her upcoming wedding to Hugo, a business genius who could charm a snake into surrender. So of course she wanted the best. Everyone told her the best was Talani. But no one ever met her. Not directly. Not even past clients. The receptionist smiled as Cheta stepped in. A tall man in a black suit stood waiting beside her. His name tag said Mr. Ka. You must be Miss Cheta, he said, smiling too wide. Talani has approved your wedding. We'll begin the process immediately. Approved? Cheta asked. Like I'm applying for a visa? Think of it more like selection, Mr. Ka replied. Not everyone gets accepted. Talani only works with couples she feels drawn to. Cheta laughed nervously. Wow. Okay. So where's Talani? Will I meet her? No. She prefers to stay unseen. But everything goes through her. Every rose petal, every plate, every prayer. Contract was 20 pages long. Cheta's eyes danced over phrases like full satisfaction, total privacy, and one strange line she didn't understand. Clause 11.59 For every celebration, a balance must be paid. 10 years, no more. What's this? She asked, pointing. Oh, Mr. Ka said, chuckling. Just creative language. A metaphor for perfection. After 10 years, you'll still be talking about this wedding. That's the idea. Cheta shrugged. All right. Let's do it. She signed. Somewhere very far from that building, a blind woman with a cracked mirror in her lap whispered, Another one! The wedding day was like something from a dream. Talani delivered. There were no missing chairs. No dry jollof rice. No ugly colors or leaking tents. From the bridal robe to the champagne glasses, everything screamed luxury. The hashtag #YugaCheta was trending in 5 countries. A-list guests arrived. Drones flew in slow motion. Fireworks exploded over the lagoon. The bride's entrance was so beautiful, even the priest forgot his line. And yet, there was something strange. Cheta noticed it during the reception. Whenever someone tried to ask about Talani, the staff either smiled silently or changed the subject. Her makeup artist said she once saw a shadow behind a curtain during a previous wedding. She doesn't talk. She doesn't move. But you feel her there, the woman whispered. Even Hugo noticed. Babe, he said, holding her waist as the dance lights bounced off their skin. Why would someone build a whole business around never showing their face? Doesn't that bother you? Cheta laughed. You sound like my mum. Cheta's mother had cried the night before the wedding. She wasn't a dramatic woman. She didn't believe in superstition. But this time her tears were real. I've prayed. I fasted. Something about this wedding is not ordinary, Mama said. I don't like this planner. I don't like this contract. I feel a cold hand every time I look at the invite. Cheta brushed it off. Mama, you just don't trust new things. I trust God, Mama said. And God is telling me this planner is not of him. But the dress was too perfect. The photo shoot was too flawless. The money was already spent. The world was watching. And Talani had already delivered everything she promised. So Chetta smiled, hugged her mother, and danced into her wedding night. 2 months later, Chetta stood in her luxurious bathroom, brushing her hair. She saw something move in the mirror. A figure. Behind her. She spun. Nothing. The light flickered. She laughed nervously. Maybe it was wedding stress or the pressure of married life. But every now and then, when she stood near a mirror past midnight, she thought she saw someone watching. Sometimes the radio in their room would change stations on its own. Sometimes the fridge light flickered with no power cut. And sometimes she heard music, her wedding song, playing faintly from nowhere. It was raining when Tina called. Tina was a colleague, bold, loud, and just as glamorous. She had used Talani 3 years before Chetta. And now she was calling, her voice shaking. Chetta, you need to listen to me. Something is happening. What do you mean? My husband is acting strange. Cold. He wakes up screaming. He keeps writing 10 years in his sleep. Chetta's stomach dropped. I went to the church for prayers. Pastor said something about a demonic countdown. He said there's a contract hanging over our home. I thought he was mad. But then, I checked our wedding contract. And there's a clause. Clause 11.59. Chetta nearly dropped the phone. I thought it was just poetic. Just words, Tina said. But it's not. It's real. It's counting down to something. I think we're cursed. Then the line went dead. 1 week later, Tina was dead. So was her husband. The news hit like thunder. Their bodies were found in their bedroom, lying beside each other, wedding photo clutched in their hands. The neighbors said they heard loud music the night before. Their anniversary. 10 years to the day. Chetta didn't speak to anyone for hours. She searched her own wedding contract again. Page 11. Clause 11. For every celebration, a balance must be paid. 10 years, no more. Her hand shook. She remembered her mum's tears. She remembered the flickering lights, the radio, the whispers, and for the first time, her beautiful wedding started to look like a funeral in disguise. Chetta went online. She searched every wedding Talani ever planned. Instagram, Twitter, wedding blogs, dozens of luxury weddings. Every couple smiling, every venue perfect. But in all the hundreds of pictures, there was never one single photo of Talani, not even in the background. She searched interviews. Nothing. She messaged former brides. Some replied politely. Others ignored her. Then one bride sent her a private message. You feel it too? The darkness? You're not alone. Don't ignore it. Start with the contract. Then follow the whispers. The message disappeared seconds later. Chetta leaned back in her chair. And that's when she heard it. Her wedding song. Playing from her wardrobe. Tina was dead. Her husband, too. On their 10th wedding anniversary. They were not the first. They would not be the last. And now Chetta's clock had started ticking, too. She had signed it. Contract. The one with the cursed line that promised a perfect wedding and a deadly price. The sky over Lagos was heavy and gray. Even the wind felt slower that day. Chetta wore black. Not because the dress code demanded it, but because her soul was already mourning something she couldn't name. Tina's funeral was rushed. No autopsy. No long speeches. Just a closed casket and soft whispers. Tina's mother sat in the front row, her hands trembling as she held her Bible. But her eyes were wild with fear, not sorrow. When the pastor ended the prayer, he said something strange. Let every strange altar that followed this union be broken in Jesus' name. Chetta's skin prickled. As people walked out, Tina's sister slipped a folded note into Chetta's palm. She didn't say a word, just nodded, eyes glassy. Chetta waited until she got into her car before opening the paper. Don't wait until your 10th year. She's watching. And she collects at midnight. Her heart began to pound. Chetta didn't sleep that night. She sat in bed, reading the contract over and over. Page 11. Clause 11. Why had she ignored it? 6 a.m. she drove back to the Talani building. It was Sunday. The office was closed. But she banged on the glass until someone came down. Mr. Ka. He looked calm as always. Madam Chetta, he said, unlocking the door with a soft smile. To what do we owe this early visit? She pushed the contract in his face. What is clause 11.59? Mr. Ka blinked, then smiled again. It is poetry. Symbolism. You got your dream wedding. You were satisfied, were you not? Tina is dead, she said sharply. On her 10th anniversary. She also signed this. His eyes flickered. Tina, yes, I remember. A lovely ceremony. White orchids and silk napkins. Tragic news. Chetta stepped closer. Is there something you're not telling me? Mr. Ka didn't move. Miss Chetta, sometimes love burns too bright. Some couples cannot carry the weight of such perfection. But do not let sorrow disturb your joy. She stared at him. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And for the first time she saw it. He wasn't afraid. He was amused. Back in her apartment, Chetta opened her laptop. She had a new mission now, find out everything she could about Talani's weddings. And she did. 26 couples. All within the last 15 years. Most were celebrities. Public figures. Influencers. First, nothing seemed strange. But then she checked the dates. Of the first 10 couples, 7 were dead, and every one of them died exactly 10 years after their wedding. Heart attacks, car crashes. One couple drowned in their own swimming pool during an anniversary party. Another died holding hands during a dinner cruise. Chetta's hand trembled as she wrote their names down. What connected all of them? Talani. And clause 11.59. Chetta needed more. She wasn't sleeping. Her eyes were tired. Her thoughts were sharp and scared. So she went to Balagan Market, looking for one of the caterers from her wedding, a woman named Aya Folake. Aya Folake didn't have a shop, but she sold food under a red umbrella near the fabric stalls. When Chetta arrived, the woman froze. You came, Aya Folake said softly. I was expecting you. Chetta blinked. You knew. I know many things, but I mind my business. She placed a plate of puff puff in front of Chetta without asking. You were warned, weren't you? My mum tried. I didn't listen. Aya Folake nodded. Most brides don't. They want the glamour. They forget some lace is stitched with blood. Chetta leaned forward. Who is Talani? What is clause 11.59? The woman glanced around, then whispered, she was once like you, full of dreams. But something broke her. Now she plans weddings for the dead and the living alike. What do you mean? She gives you 10 years of bliss. Then she collects. Collects what? Your love. Your life. Your soul. Chetta woke up at exactly 11:59 p.m. She didn't set an alarm. She didn't mean to wake up. But something pulled her eyes open. The house was silent. Then, slowly, her wedding photos fell one by one from the wall. No wind. No shaking. Just down. She ran to the living room. Every clock in the house stopped at 11:59. TV turned on by itself. played a wedding. Her wedding. But the people had no faces. Only shadows. Only silence. Then a voice came from the screen. You signed it. 10 years. No more, she screamed. And all the lights went out. In the morning, Cheta looked at Hugo differently. He was brushing his teeth when she noticed a mark on his shoulder. A tattoo. Small. Faint. But clear. 11:59. Hugo, she said, voice shaking. What is that? He turned quickly. What? She pointed. That tattoo. What does it mean? He looked away. It's just a time. A reminder. Of what? He sighed. Cheta, don't start. Please. But she didn't let it go. Not that day. Not after Tina. Not after the photos. Not after the whispering TV. She followed Hugo the next evening. He left the house without telling her. She trailed him in her car. Through Enkay. Into Old Lagos Island. To Baker Street. The house looked abandoned. Paint peeling. Windows cracked. Cheta parked far and walked carefully, her scarf wrapped tightly over her hair. She saw him. Hugo. Her husband. Knocking on the iron door. A woman opened. Blindfolded. Old. Thin. She touched his face. Then let him in. Cheta waited. 20 minutes. Then she moved closer. There was a small sign by the gate, written in chalk. Forgiveness buys what revenge cannot. When Hugo returned home that night, Cheta was waiting. He looked guilty. Tell me the truth, she said. Now, or I'm gone. He sat down and began. 12 years ago, I had a friend named Bai. We were young, wild. We did something terrible. There was a girl. Her name was Deborah. Bai loved her. But she caught him cheating on her with someone close. She tried to expose him. We laughed at her. Played tricks. Lied on her name. Cheta sat frozen. She disappeared after that. We heard rumors that she tried to kill herself. That she was disfigured. Then we heard she died. She didn't, Cheta whispered. No, Hugo replied. She became Talani. Cheta gasped. She came back. Changed. But alive. And angry. She made a deal with something I don't understand. Her weddings, they are her justice. And you helped her? I didn't know at first. But when I found out, it was too late. She told me if I stayed quiet, she would spare me. But now I know it's all wrong. Too many people have died. Cheta stood. I want to meet her. Not her planner. Not her staff. Her. Hugo nodded slowly. Then we have to find Bai. There are streets in Lagos that don't appear on any map. And there are stories that live in silence until someone knocks at the wrong door. Cheta was about to find out that Baker Street was one of those places. And that Bai, the man behind the curse, was not just a piece of the puzzle. He was the match that burned the whole house down. His real name is Bai Alyamide, Hugo said the next morning, sipping tea slowly like he was afraid to spill the truth too quickly. Cheta stared at him across the breakfast table. Toast on her plate was untouched. Her hands were shaking again. And where is he now? She asked. I don't know, Hugo said. After the incident, he disappeared. Changed numbers. Deleted socials. He just vanished. But you found Talani, Cheta snapped. You visited that house. That woman. I followed an anonymous email, he said. Same way you found your wedding planner. She chooses when she wants to be found. Cheta exhaled and picked up her phone. She had one thing Hugo didn't: followers. Her Instagram page had over 800,000 people. She asked someone would know something. She posted a story. Looking for a man named By Olyamide. Used to live in Suralire. If anyone has info, message me. Urgent. Life or death. Within minutes, the replies began. Several people responded, but one reply stood out. Are you talking about By? The guy with the charm? He works at an auto garage in Mushin now. Doesn't talk to anyone. But yeah, he used to be something else. Cheta dressed simply. No lashes. No perfume. Just jeans, a hoodie, and courage. She and Hugo arrived at the address at 3 p.m. It was a mechanic shop squeezed between two rundown buildings. Dust hung in the air. Oil stained the walls. And a skinny man with tired eyes stood over an open car bonnet. By. Even after all those years, Hugo recognized him. By, Hugo called. The man looked up. He blinked. Then froze. Hugo. Cheta stepped forward. My name is Cheta. I'm one of Talani's brides. By turned pale. He dropped the spanner in his hand. I'm not part of that anymore, he said quickly. Whatever it is, whatever she's doing, I left it behind. I didn't know she'd become this thing. You started it, Hugo said softly. By didn't deny it. Instead, he said something that made Cheta's heart jump. She still hears the laughter. They sat at a buka nearby. Plastic chairs. Bitter leaf soup. Warm air. By spoke slowly, like a man dragging words out of his own grave. Deborah was innocent. Too good for us. She had dreams of being a wedding designer. Loved fabric. Loved love. But I ruined her. Cheta's eyes didn't blink. She caught me cheating, By continued. Not once. Not twice. But I kept twisting the truth. Told people she was obsessed. That she was crazy. He sipped his water. She tried to expose me. I was afraid she'd destroy my image, so I fought back. I created lies. Hugo helped. Others did too. He looked at Cheta with eyes full of shame. She was called mad. Fired from her internship. Kicked out of her church. Even her sister stopped talking to her. Hugo leaned in. Then she disappeared. By nodded. We thought she had taken her life. But she didn't, Cheta whispered. No. She went somewhere darker. I heard from someone years later. She was taken in by a woman deep in Ogun State. Some say the woman was a seer. Others say something worse. He paused. She came back with no eyes. Cheta gasped. She was blind. Yes, By said. But she could still see. She said she saw what was inside us. She came back with a new name. Talani. A new purpose. And a curse. By wiped his hands on his trousers. She told me she made a pact. With something under the sea. I didn't believe her until I saw one of her weddings. It was flawless. But heavy. Like something unseen was watching. Cheta leaned forward. What was the deal? She would give couples the perfect wedding. Kind people dream about. But in return, he looked up at her. They would only get 10 years apiece. After that, she'd collect. Collect what? Sometimes the husband. Sometimes the wife. Sometimes both. But always something. And she didn't even touch them. The curse did the work. Hugo buried his face in his palms. And we helped start this. By looked at him. We destroyed a girl. She became a woman who destroys. That's what revenge does. Cheta stood up. This has to stop. By looked scared. It's not that easy. Curse is alive now. It moves on its own. Even if she regrets it, she might not be able to end it. But we have to try, she said. If you really want forgiveness, then come with us. Let's face her. He shook his head. She won't forgive me. Then beg. Not for you, but for the people who have no idea they're walking into death. Bai hesitated, then nodded. They returned to Baker Street that night. The gate opened before they even knocked. Inside, the walls were lined with wedding photos. All beautiful, all cursed. The center of the living room sat a woman in a dark red wrapper, her eyes covered with gold cloth. Her skin was scarred, but her presence was powerful. Talani. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She just tilted her head. Bai stepped forward, knees shaking. "Deborah," he whispered. She didn't respond. "I ruined you. I know. I can't take it back. But please, there are people who don't know. They're dying. The curse, let it go." Till, she said nothing. Then Chetta spoke. "You wanted justice. You got it. But now it's become something else. It's not just revenge anymore. It's a chain. One you're still wearing." Silence. Then a voice. Came not from Talani, but from the hallway. Soft. Gentle. "Debbie." A young woman stepped out. She looked like Deborah, but younger, brighter. Tears filled Talani's hidden eyes. "Sister." "Yes, it's me. I've been looking for you all these years." Bai fell to his knees. "I'm sorry." And that's when something in the room changed. Pictures on the wall began to fall. One by one, the house groaned, like it was waking up, or breaking. Talani stood. Her blindfold slipped. There were no eyes, just silver where pain had carved her vision away. But she looked at Bai, at Hugo, at her sister, and finally at Chetta. Then she said, "I was trying to kill what hurt me, but I became something worse." Her voice was like broken glass. "The curse is not mine anymore, but I can still end it. With help." "What do you need?" Chetta asked. Talani reached out. "Someone has to speak the names of the couples. All of them. And then burn the contracts." "Where are they?" Hugo asked. Talani lifted a box. Inside, 26 files. Each one marked with a number. Each one ticking. They started reading. By midnight, all names had been read. All papers had been burned. The air was thick. The mirrors in the house cracked. The wedding photos disappeared. And Talani? She smiled. Not a wide, evil smile, but a quiet one. One that said, "I'm free." Bai was still crying. Her sister hugged her tightly. "I forgive you," she whispered. "Now forgive yourself." Chetta stood near the door. And for the first time since her wedding, she felt light again. Forgiveness is not just for the innocent. Sometimes the guilty need it more than air. But what if the person you're begging doesn't have eyes to see your tears or a heart left to feel your pain? That night, in the small haunted house on Baker Street, they weren't just begging a woman. They were begging a spirit made of silence, memory, and blood. The morning after the burning, Lagos woke up to clouds without rain. Chetta stood on her balcony, staring into the quiet. For the first time since her wedding, she didn't hear whispers in her sleep. No falling frames. No invisible music. It was like the house itself had sighed. But inside her, the storm wasn't over. She turned to see Hugo, still asleep on the couch. He hadn't moved from where he collapsed last night after the reading ritual. The files were gone. Cursed papers had turned to ash. But the question still lived. Was it enough? She pulled her phone from the charger. No notifications. No emails. No DM from the bride she had messaged. Only one new message sat in her inbox. From Talani@blindbride.org. "Come back before midnight. One last thing remains." At exactly 7:05 p.m., Chetta walked back into the house on Baker Street. Alone. The windows were open this time. Fresh air filled the room. Talani Deborah was seated, her gold blindfold back in place, wearing a white wrapper. She looked like a widow who had finished crying long ago. Her sister sat beside her, holding her hand. Chetta nodded in greeting and sat. No words. Just silence between them, soft and full of meaning. Then Talani broke it. I saw you before you ever saw me. Chetta blinked. You came into my net, she continued. But you were different. You were searching for truth, not just a fairy tale. Chetta swallowed hard. And now? Talani tilted her head. Now? I don't want to curse anymore. But curses are not paper. They don't tear. They need to be unwritten. What does that mean? Talani's sister spoke this time. You have to take her place. Chetta stared in shock. Take her place? What does that mean? Talani turned her head. The curse is connected to the contract. Contract is connected to the planner. If I disappear, someone has to carry the balance or the curse resets. Chetta shook her head. But I don't want to become this. You don't have to, Talani said gently. You only need to close it. End it. By finding every remaining copy of the contract still in circulation and destroying them before 11:59 on the next full moon. Chetta frowned. That's just 2 weeks from now. 14 days, Talani confirmed. You have that long. And if I don't? The curse will reawaken. But this time it won't wait 10 years. Chetta felt her chest tighten. And how many copies are left? Talani reached beneath her seat and pulled out a black leather book. 15 couples. Some still planning weddings. Some recently married. Chetta took the book with trembling hands. Inside were names, addresses, wedding dates, and a strange symbol next to each name. The same symbol that had been on Tina's death certificate, 11:59. The next 10 days were a blur of movement. Chetta and Hugo drove from Ikorodu to Lekki, from Ikeja to Badagry. They found couples who were days away from weddings, and others who were already beginning to hear music in their mirrors. One bride was already in the hospital with mysterious burns on her arms. One groom had left his fiancée without a word after dreaming of being buried in his tuxedo. Each time Chetta visited a couple, she brought a priest, a contract shredder, and a truth they didn't want to hear. Some believed her immediately. Others laughed until their mirrors cracked that night. One woman, a widow named Madame Chica, had lost her husband exactly 10 years after their wedding. She cried when Chetta showed her the contract. I thought it was just a joke. He signed it so fast. Said Talani was the best. Chetta held her hands. You're not alone. We're breaking it. One by one. On the 11th night, I called Chetta. He sounded breathless. Chetta, I made a mistake. There's one more couple. What? They got married last week. But their contract was processed before Talani burned the files. It's still active. Chetta's stomach dropped. Who are they? I hesitated. Don't be angry, but it's your cousin. Amara. Chetta dropped her phone. Amara. The bubbly cousin who had admired Chetta's wedding so much. The one who said, if I can't get Talani, I'm not getting married at all. She had begged Chetta for the planner's number. And Chetta had given it. It was 9:30 p.m. The streets of Lagos were heavy with Friday night traffic. Chetta didn't care. She drove like a woman running from fire. Hugo sat beside her, whispering prayers under his breath. They arrived at Amara's flat by 10:05 p.m. She was home, packing for her honeymoon in Zanzibar. She opened the door in a floral robe, smiling. Chetta! What a surprise! Chetta pushed past her. Where is the contract? Amara blinked. What? The wedding contract. The one from Talani. Where is it? Amara frowned. In my drawer. Why? Chetta ran to the room, tore open the drawer. There it was. Gold-trimmed. Beautiful. Deadly. She ripped it apart without asking. Amara screamed. What are you doing? That was expensive. Chetta turned, breathing heavily. And that's when the TV turned on. A wedding video. Of Amara. But the groom had no face. Just darkness. The screen burst. Amara fainted. Hugo caught her. And Chetta whispered, that's why. By the 13th night, Chetta had destroyed every copy. 15 in total. But something inside her was still not at peace. She returned to Baker Street. Talani sat waiting. Her sister wasn't there. Just her. And the shadows. You did well, Talani said softly. Chetta dropped the contract book at her feet. It's done. Talani nodded. Then the curse is sleeping. Not dead. Talani sighed. Nothing like this ever truly dies. It waits. For anger. For betrayal. For another girl with a broken heart and no way out. Chetta felt her chest tighten. What happens now? You go home. Live your life. Love your husband. And you. Talani smiled. I disappear. She stood. Removed her blindfold. The silver in her eyes was fading. And in its place nothing. Just peace. You freed me, she whispered. Not with fire. But with forgiveness. As Chetta turned to leave, she looked back one last time. The house was already dimming. The walls cracking. The photos falling. One last time she saw Talani standing there, no longer a planner or a ghost. Just a woman. Then the door shut itself. And Baker Street was empty. They said the curse was sleeping now. But Chetta knew better. Curses don't sleep. They wait. In mirrors. In promises. In blind spots we call love. And now, with Talani gone, it was Chetta's voice the world would hear next. Because freedom doesn't come from silence. Comes from truth told aloud, before the clock strikes 11:59 again. Chetta returned to Baker Street the next morning to say goodbye. But the house was gone. Not empty. Gone. The gate stood open, rusted and silent. Compound was a yard filled with weeds and rubble. No chairs. No windows. Just cracked ground. She stood frozen. The house where spirits whispered through cracked mirrors. The house where Talani burned away the past. It had vanished. Hugo, she whispered into the phone. The house, it's not there. She didn't need him to ask which house. He already knew. Back in the city, the world kept spinning. Couples still rushed to propose in malls. Weddings were still trending every Saturday. And wedding planners with glowing websites still promised perfection beyond dreams. Lagos didn't know a curse had been lifted. 'Cause Lagos didn't know there was a curse in the first place. But Chetta knew. So did the widows she had visited. So did the grooms who had cried behind closed doors, holding torn contracts and shaking like leaves. But none of them posted it online. 'Cause curses don't trend. People don't like stories with blood under the glitter. Chetta decided to speak. Not to expose, but to set free. She started a podcast called The Fine Print, a series where she told stories behind beautiful pictures, hidden details in contracts, and the importance of spiritual checks before emotional decisions. Her first episode opened like this. 10 years ago, I signed something I didn't read. 'Cause I trusted glitter. Trusted the crowd. Trusted what looked like gold. But what I signed almost killed me. Not because of the paper, but because of what was hiding inside the silence. People listened. Quietly at first. Then loudly. Soon, brides began to message her. Then vendors. Then even planners. Some shared stories. Others apologized. But one message stood out. I was one of Talani's staff. I didn't know what I was a part of. I just followed orders. But after the house disappeared, I dreamt of her. She smiled at me, and then vanished. That night, Cheta had her first dream in months. She stood in a white room. It was raining softly outside. In front of her was a mirror. She looked into it, but instead of her own reflection, she saw Deborah. Not Talani. Not blind. Just Deborah. Younger. Softer. She spoke with no sound. Just a movement of her lips. Don't become me. Then the mirror cracked, and the dream ended. Cheta woke up crying. She didn't know why, but she knew it was a goodbye. Months passed. Cheta found out she was pregnant. The day she heard the heartbeat, she thought about Tina, about the bride with burns, about the couple who drowned. She held Hugo's hand and whispered, "We're going to raise this child with truth. No glitter over lies." He nodded. They named their daughter Deborah, not because of the curse, but because of the woman who taught them to break it. Cheta was invited to speak at a marriage seminar in Lekki. She didn't plan to attend, but something pulled her there. She stood before a room of 200 women. Some were brides-to-be, some were single mothers, some were wedding vendors. And she began like this. There's a reason your spirit feels things your eyes don't see. There's a reason your mother says pray before you sign. There's a reason silence is the most dangerous guest at a wedding. Crowd was quiet. Then someone asked, "What should we do before a wedding?" She smiled. Read the fine print, and read the spirit behind it. One night, months later, Hugo cried. He had just put baby Deborah to sleep. Then he sat beside Cheta and said, "I still see Bai in my dreams. Still hear that laugh we made when we broke her heart." Cheta held his hand. "Regret is a room we must pass through. But don't live there." "I don't deserve you," he said. She looked into his eyes. "You didn't deserve the curse either. But we both lived through it. That means we build something better. Starting now." He nodded and kissed her palm. A year passed. Then two. Talani's name faded. People stopped whispering, but a few still remembered. Some couples who heard Cheta's podcast postponed their weddings to pray and fast. A few tore their contracts apart and chose smaller, simpler weddings filled with peace. And one day, a bride who had once laughed at Cheta's podcast posted this. "I finally get it. We are not fighting wedding problems. We're fighting spiritual traps disguised in rose gold and champagne flutes." On the 10th episode of The Fine Print, Cheta sat alone in her new studio. She wore a simple yellow blouse. Her baby slept in the next room. And she spoke calmly. "This is the final episode. Not because I've run out of stories, but because you've heard enough to start looking deeper. If you see glitter, ask where the light is coming from. If you feel unease, don't silence it with lace and wine. And if you're in love, love wisely. Love truthfully. And above all, read the fine print. 'Cause the clock doesn't stop for ignorance. It strikes at 11:59. She ended with silence. And the world this time listened. Years later, when baby Deborah was 5, she asked, "Mummy, what's 11:59? Cheta smiled. "It's the moment before something ends. Or begins. It's when you choose whether to keep sleeping or wake up." Deborah nodded. "I'll wake up." Cheta kissed her forehead. "I believe you will." And as the night crept in and Lagos danced its usual noisy dance, somewhere in a quiet part of the city, a mirror cracked. But this time nothing came through. 'Cause the curse was broken. And the girl who once walked into it had walked others out. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.